Welcome to The Secrets of Success. By following the proven techniques of the guests who appear on this series, you'll learn that even successful people run into detours and failures, and how you can apply their success techniques to change your life.
You're now listening to the most unique show on radio, the show dedicated to making you a success. Damon Lembi wants you to be a learn-it-all leader. Today, he'll tell us how. Damon, thanks for being with us today.
Bill, thanks for having me. It's an honor to be on your show.
Now, Damon, you've written a book, The Learn-It-All Leader, and you yourself are CEO of a company called Learn It. Am I correct?
That's correct.
Can you tell us how it came about and why would we want to take part in Learn It? What does the company do?
Great. So a little backstory on how Learn It came about is I grew up in the San Francisco Bay Area, and back in the 90s, my father, Walt Lembi, was a big entrepreneur. We had a large real estate company and multiple other businesses, from a hotel chain, everything from a savings and loan, and even a Chinese restaurant. And in the 90s, he was looking for a way to digitize his portfolio, get rid of all the paper. So what he did was he went to a computer training company. He took a class in, how to use Excel or whatever, and he thought it was really boring and long and just sterile. And so, like what a lot of great entrepreneurs do, Bill, is he said, there's got to be a better way to do this. And that's where he came up with the idea of Learn It, to have these short 2-hour sessions where the classes were engaging, and the instructors were fantastic. And that's really the genesis of Learn It. And I happened to be finishing up my baseball career at Arizona State, and I thought I was going to continue on and play baseball, but that came to an end. And I had a couple different options, but I was unsure what I could do, what my skills were transferable. And I started at Learn It in June of 1995 at the front desk as a receptionist. And over the next 7 years, I worked my way up from teaching classes to doing sales to becoming the CEO. And if you fast forward 28 years now, we've trained over 1.8 million individuals, and all B2B. We do live instructor-led training, and we focus on helping companies do things like when leaders are promoted to being managers for the first time, helping them acquire the skills they need for that, how to break down communication silos in organizations, and maybe even just creating a learning culture. So those are really, and plus how to use Excel. So those are really the skills that we help and have helped our customers for the past 28 years at Learn It.
And I saw a brief description, and I thought this was so perfect. In your book, you say, Learn It basically teaches you the hard and soft skills people will need now and in the future. And I'm sure we don't even have one person listening to us who hasn't gone into a store or a doctor's office or a pharmacy and said, is this the way you do things? I'm waiting here for 20 minutes, or that, someone answers the phone. Your phone is very important. Your call is very important to us. We'll be with you instantly. And 8 minutes later, you're still listening to music and nothing is happening. So learning those skills, it's great. We learn trigonometry and geometry and science and chemistry and all that good stuff. But for most of us, what we're using day by day, just treating people right, and as you said, the soft skills and necessary skills, I think Learn It, your company, is definitely at the right place in the right time.
Thanks, Bill. I have a story from just 2 hours ago. I'm out here on the West Coast, and I went to this restaurant for lunch. I had 3 individuals with me, and their rule is that they won't seat you until your entire party is there. And our 5th member was going to be about 15 minutes late, and the woman just wouldn't make an exception. She wouldn't sit. She's like, "That's the rules. I can't bend them." And so I said, I understood, and I took my my party next door to have lunch somewhere else, because maybe be a little flexible and use some critical thinking.
Exactly. And of course, again, here you have a businessman, your own business. You're the CEO of the company. I'm sure the other people were equally in the same prosperous level, but even if they weren't, why not sit you down? What's going to hurt? They're going to sell you one more round of drinks. They're going to make money. You're not going to abuse them. You're not a wise guy who's trying to put one over on them.
I promised her, I said, I promise you, we have a 2:00 meeting we have to get back to. We're going to order lunch, and I promise you to get out of your hair in time. And she's like, no, I can't do it. That's what the rules are. And, lunch isn't inexpensive out here in Sausalito, California. So that was about $120 meal that we had to take someplace else.
And I'm translating for the waitress. That was probably a $20 to $30 tip that would have come with that meal, and she just blew that. So this is why we need Learn It. So actually, it's a perfect commercial for you. Maybe she'll act in your next commercial and do it for you.
Have a little self-awareness and critical thinking skills, problem solving.
Early on in your book, you told us that if we're saying or going by the saying, that is the way we've always done things, first of all, it's a red flag. And second of all, we're in trouble, right?
Right. So the whole premise of my book, The Learn It All Leader, is we talk about the difference between being a learn-it-all and being a know-it-all. And so what you referred to right there, Bill, is basically what a know-it-all is. They come in and they say, this is how we've always done things. I have it all figured out, and they really want to keep to the status quo. And, I think these days that's just not acceptable in the rapid pace of change. And so my whole book is about being a learn-it-all. Be somebody who comes in with an open mind, and even if you're pretty positive about what the situation is, what's the old saying? Hold your thoughts, but be open to change. I mean, that's not exactly what I was trying to say, but being open to challenging the way you do things, and try to find ways to continually evolve and get better.
I was just thinking you could really have the last laugh if you go back one day this week for lunch and hand that waitress and the owner of the place a copy of your book, and perhaps say, you might want to read this little section here. We just talked about it on a show the other night. Have a laugh and walk out.
I think I'll do that. It's a good food, and it's actually the waitress who missed out. It was the front desk person who wouldn't make the change. But yeah, I think that you got to always challenge the status quo, and in order to do that, you need to be open to diverse opinions and different ideas, and not be afraid to try things and be different.
Now, you mentioned in your book, and this is a new term for me, you say great leaders are information extractors. What does that mean? I love that term. It sounds so important, but what does it mean day to day?
Yeah. So when I look at it, I feel like anybody you come in contact with, you can learn from. Everybody that you meet, they are more of an expert at something than you are. So it's really important to be curious and to listen, and you can pick up a lot, and you can extract information from people that way, and it helps you become more well-rounded. And then I think great leaders are great students. And not only can you learn this information, but then to really help it be retention is to share it back and to help your whether it's your team members or your children or whomever, help whatever you learned, teach others. And that helps you retain the information that you picked up.
Now, we've heard the term from many of our guests, imposter syndrome, and it's popular today. But could you define it, tell us what it means and why it's important to us, especially in a book on the Learn It All leader? Well,
my definition of imposter syndrome is maybe just not feeling that you're good enough or adequate to be in the position that you're in, having self-doubt or having that inner critic that's saying, maybe I don't belong. Take, for example, that you're promoted into a position in leadership and you're like, okay, now all these people need to report to me. Am I really qualified to be their leader? And my response to that is, yes, you are. You were promoted into this. And I've dealt with imposter syndrome, throughout my career, whether it's making a big presentation or going all the way back to my baseball days. And I've come up with a 3-step approach that's worked for me that I've shared with others. The first step is work hard. I'm not talking about, Bill, I'm not saying you got to work 10 to 14 hours a day, 7 days a week. But what I mean by working hard is be consistent and put in the effort. Number 2 is to really focus. It's easy to procrastinate and, lose interest and go in a different direction, especially when trying to learn something and get better at something is hard. So put in deliberate practice. And so let's say that you're giving a big presentation to your team for the first time. If you have worked hard and you've put in a deliberate practice, then step 3 is walk into that presentation, stop thinking about techniques and everything, and learn and let go. Give your presentation, do your best. You're human. Doesn't mean that things are going to be perfect all the time, but do your best. And what I mean by let go is don't be so hard on yourself. See how it goes. It could go great. Maybe it doesn't, but learn from that. Celebrate and really give yourself credit for how, you put in the effort and the preparation to do a good job, and then learn and just move forward and go from there.
And I think you even had a quote from Joe Montana who said, we're all going to make mistakes. The biggest thing is how you recover from that mistake. So even if we goof it up a little bit or it's not perfect, it's kind of highly unlikely that we're going to screw it up that much. And if we learn something from it, we've got another 30 or 40 years that we can make our business prosper. Damon, before we go further, I'd like to let our audience know you're listening to The Secrets of Success on the voice of Nassau Community College, 90.3 WHPC. I'm your host, Bill Horan. Today we're talking to Damon Lembi, Lembi. His book is The Learn It All Leader. And Damon, we're going to ask you, is there a website where we could learn more?
Sure. My website is www.learnit.com.
Learn it being one word and just the way it sounds.
One word, just the way it sounds.
Damon, in your book, you have we already mentioned one of them, but you have a lot of interesting terms. And another one is, I'm going to say it slowly, purposeful awfulizing. Awfulizing. Okay, thank you.
I think it's a made-up word, but yeah.
That's okay. That's fun. It's an expression. And now we have to ask you, what does that mean? So it's a great elevator pitch. What is that?
So what I mean when I say purposeful awfulizing, you almost tripped me up there, is let's say, as a leader, you have to make a lot of decisions, and you got to make sometimes very quick decisions, sometimes really thought out, but your team is looking for you to be decisive, and make decisions. But there's different types of decisions. So let's say that there is a decision that is really important. Okay. And so if that's really important, then what you need to do is fast forward, say, a year out, 18 months out, and think hard about what is the worst case scenario. Let's say that if we went and acquired a business and things went south, that it would put us out of business. And if that's the worst case scenario, and even if there's only like a 2% chance of it happening, is it worth taking that risk? And because a lot of times, you always want to look at things from a rosy glass, and I'm not trying to be negative, but you need to understand what the worst case scenario is, and that's purposeful awfulizing. And if you can't overcome and handle what the worst case scenario is, then go back to the drawing board, get more people involved, and think of new options. But if you can handle whatever the worst case scenario is, then, like Jeff Bezos always said, if you have 70% of the information or more, then be decisive, make those bold decisions, and move forward.
Now, that leads us to, again, I took a lot of notes from your book. You can see as we're talking.
Thank you.
No, thank you, because first of all, I think this is an excellent book. By the way, I want to say to our audience, if someone is becoming or moved up to a leadership position, even if it's becoming the foreman, if you're over 2 or 3 other people or 30 other people, this is a great way to literally be the learn-it-all leader and learn about it. You can go through this book in probably less than 2 days. I'm going to guess it's about 150 pages, maybe 125. And the ideas are all really practical, spot on, because obviously the man who's written the book, our guest, Damon Lembi, knows what he's talking about. Now, you say vision differentiates leaders from operators. Can you explain what that means and how can we help develop ourselves into a person with vision?
So I want to take one step back for your listeners. So my definition, Bill, of a leader is you don't have to manage a team of 10, 20, 2,000. I think we all have the ability to be leaders, and whether you're a parent, whether you're an individual contributor at the office, a student in school, to me, leadership starts with self-leadership, accountability, working hard and discipline. So we all have the opportunity to be leaders if we choose to be. Now, getting to your question about the vision and operational is I look at it, a lot of times there's a lot of discussion between what's the difference between being a leader and a manager. Now, I see them as both important roles, but the difference to me is that the leader, like my father was a leader, he had these massive visions, these moonshot dreams and goals. And just like my coach at Pepperdine, Andy Lopez, did of winning the World Series. So the leader comes up with the vision, and then the manager is the one who helps operationalize it and carry it out. Now, you need both, but to me, that's different. The leader has the vision, and the manager sees that vision through execution.
I think that, is there any way that we can see, are we vision people, or is it just coming up with new ideas and explaining them to either the manager or the person above us to see if it catches on, or someone says, you know what, that's really good. You noticed something no one else did. Is there a way to develop that?
Yes. It's interesting you brought that up. I love learning from others. And I was at this conference, and a gentleman who wrote a book, Jeremy Utley, wrote a book called Idea Flow. And the premise of that book is that in order to come up with great ideas, and, sometimes it takes you to create 2,000 ideas, good ideas, bad ideas. And so ideas come from everywhere. And as a leader, like in my organization, it's important for me to get curious and listen to people at all levels, from people at the front desk to sales to our instructors and, of course, our clients, and really get curious, listen to what they have to say, because you can generate ideas, good and bad, from everywhere. Now, you don't have to be Steve Jobs or Elon Musk. You could put in the effort and learn how to get in the habit of creating or learning ideas from people around you.
And sometimes the simplest ideas are really the best and can become the most profitable, because those are the people who are dealing with the customers. And they see what either the customer wants or doesn't like, and can bring that up the line to management. And
one tip, I would say, you're 100% right. One tip for those of you out there who lead teams, big or small, is that when you go and you talk to the person at the front desk or an instructor or somebody on the accounting team, and they come up with a great idea and you implement that idea, you know what you need to do? You need to be selfless. You need to celebrate and give them credit for that idea. Make it, be grateful, and then let everybody know that they came up with that idea. And when you create that kind of gratitude, and you give people space to come up with ideas, and then you let everybody know that it was their idea, they're going to want to go out there and they're going to continue to look for other ways to make your organization better and do things differently. Where on the flip side, if you're a selfish leader, then you make it all about yourself. You take credit, even though credit goes somewhere else. And that just demotivates people. And when you do that, people aren't going to want to come up with ideas and share them, because, they're just going to get overlooked, or, they know the boss would take credit, which is just a poor way about going about leadership. You have a very simple statement, again, another one that I copied in my notes, and you say, always add value. Don't waste time checking in. And I think of that, and I think, how many days did I go to the office and, I went in, said hello to somebody, and maybe left a little earlier for lunch or got back a little later. If I could look at my day and had that saying on my phone or in the office someplace, just to press me to keep doing that, how much more we could all produce and probably move up that corporate ladder, because someone's going to say, look, this guy or this woman is working all the time. And if we're just guided by your saying, just always add value, don't just be there and do something that's going to be meaningful, I think that would be a great guideline, and certainly get us up a few ranks. It might not get us to the CEO level, but certainly a couple of steps up that ladder. You mentioned that leaders should model and focus to what they want in people. Can you talk about that? Because, again, that's another statement to me that I think is so spot on. So what I mean by that is, as a leader, you need to understand that you're always on. People are always watching what you're doing. And, from your body language to the way you handle challenges to whether or not you're, honest and have integrity. And so, I think it starts with the leader. Or your leadership team. You have your core values, but core values need to be more than something that's just placed on the wall. It needs to be, carried out by your CEO and everybody else. And that's what I mean. You need to roll up your sleeves and you need to live the values. and have integrity. And like I talk about in my book, I think the 4 key traits are humility, integrity, curiosity, and courage. And if you do that yourself, then the rest of your team will do the same.
Once again, Damon, before we go further, I'd like to let our audience know that you're listening to The Secrets of Success on the voice of Nassau Community College, 90.3 WHPC. I'm Bill Horan. Our guest today is Damon Lembi, Lembi. His book is The Learn It All Leader, Mindset, Traits, and Tools. And Damon, we're going to ask you again, can you give us the website?
So the website is www.learnit.com, and it's one word, LEARNIT.com.
Damon, you talk in your book about a growth mindset. What does that mean to the average worker and who's picking up your book? How does that change from where he or she is today?
Well, I think a growth mindset is focus less on the results, the finished product, and focus more on the actual process and celebrate the process of getting there. I have a 6-year-old daughter, and she was concerned about entering this tricycle race or whatever the other day because she thought maybe she wouldn't win. And I said, you know what? That's not what's important. What's important is going out and giving your best effort. So a growth mindset is all about giving your best effort, and the old saying, not yet. Instead of saying, I can't do this, it's better to say, not yet. I haven't got there yet, and continue to work towards that goal.
Another term that I pulled out of your book, and you have a lot of great ones there, is something called possibility spotting. Now, I've never come across that, and we've been on for 35 years, so tell us, what is possibility spotting? What does that mean?
So when I say possibility spotting, is that as a leader or whatever role you're in, is to listen, be curious, ask for feedback, and sometimes you need to work within your constraints. Okay, so during COVID, we were all on lockdown, and my business that went from being in person all the time is now sheltered in remote. But so I got curious, and I thought to myself, what can we do differently now that we're in this virtual world? And what came to mind to me was the ability to hire sales reps all throughout the country, which we never did before. And so that's what I mean by possibility spotting, that sometimes you have to deal with constraints or the situation that comes up, and you could actually make positive change out of it. But you're not going to be able to make positive change out of it if you're not listening, asking for feedback, and getting curious about the surroundings around you.
And I'm just thinking as you're answering that, if any of us could go to our job and just say, what is the possibility of us doing this? Maybe a new lock on the door, maybe a security system. It might be that simple, or putting the refrigerator in another section, or moving 2 desks around. But I think if we challenge ourselves, and even if the first 5 or 6 or 7, we say, that doesn't make much sense, or that's stupid, maybe number 8, 9, and 10 is that idea that we've all been looking for. And it really impresses the boss or the person who's above us and say, well, at least this person is thinking. It may not have been the greatest idea, but they are trying, they're delving into it, and it shows that they're heading in the right direction. Let's put it that way.
I agree with you. 100%. I mean, you want individuals. I always would say when people come to work for me, I don't want you to be on a railroad track where you're just doing the exact thing you're supposed to do. I want you to try things out, break things. And like you said earlier, Bill, you're typically not going to create something, make a mistake that's going to be so terrible. But if you're not, so make mistakes, but if you're not coming up with ideas and you're just on this train track and you don't learn anything else, I mean, that's not going to help us evolve as an organization. So I think great leaders want their team to think out of the box and, experiment.
Your company, Learn It, again, going back to what we said originally, works with people to prepare them for the hard and soft skills they'll need going into the future. So now when you sit down with a class or with a person individually or a company, what are you finding are our biggest weak spots? Now, you are a baseball player, so is it the defense? Is it the offense, the pitching, the management, maybe the upper management, the CEO of the baseball team or general manager? What in business are you finding is our biggest weak spots?
That's a great question. And I would say that right now, one of the challenges that we deal with most with our customers are that individuals are being promoted into management positions and they don't have the skills because it's a different skill set to be successful. And so that's a very big challenge that companies are having, because if managers aren't successful in leading their team, then people leave. So that's a big one. And then the other one that we're seeing experience a lot is just the difference in generations. You know, the Gen Zs like to be communicated with differently than the other generations, and it's important for all of us to learn how to be able to collaborate and have empathy and work together.
Damon, if you were hiring someone and they just come into you, and today perhaps your hiring officer isn't there, so you have 3 appointments, you're taking over. Mm-hmm. What are you personally looking for in terms of your company, that if someone came into you that you're saying, what skill are you looking for that they have, and then you can teach them the rest?
So I'm a big believer in hiring for potential over experience whenever possible. And, you know, for your listeners out there that are out there interviewing, I got a couple tips. My first tip is going back to the imposter syndrome, is that let's say that you see a job posting out there and it says mandatory requirements that you have this, or this. Well, those are just nice to haves. If it's a job that you think you can do a great job at, but you're not sure if you're qualified or good enough, but go out there and try it. You know, apply for that job. You know, get in there and show your personality that and passion for why you'd be a great job. You'd be great for the job. So that's one tip. My other tip is that when you get on that interview, please don't ask any questions that you could find answers to on the internet. You know, I think it's important to come prepared, be on time for an interview, and take notes, ask good questions, and listen. So to answer your original question, I think it's really important out there to become a good listener. That's one skill that you can continue to always get better at. And if you're a good listener and you have a great attitude, you know, I think that you're capable of learning the rest of the skills that are going to make you successful, not only today, but in the future.
Damon Lembi, thank you for being with us today. The book is The Learn It All Leader. And once again, give us that website.
The website is learnit.com. And I want to say, if you want to connect with me on LinkedIn at Damon Lembi, and that, again, that's Damon Lembi on LinkedIn, and send me a message. I will send you a code to mention this show, and I will send you a code to a free class at Learn It.
Can't beat that. I love your book. I love the idea, and I want to thank you so much for being with us today.
Thanks, Bill. I really appreciate you having me today.
I'd like our audience to know that you've been listening to The Secrets of Success on the voice of Nassau Community College, 90.3 WHPC. I'm Bill Horan, asking you to please join us again next week at the same time when we will continue our journey to success.